Well, we are back for another episode. Oh, shoot. I'm going to put my tea here and my microphone here. Y'all, almost missed the microphone. Hello and welcome to another day of news, of conversation, of looking at the economy, looking at politics. There's so much going on in the world right now, but a lot of it is happening right in my neighborhood, sorta, Chicago. I'm just a couple hours away from Chicago. I've got my tea. I've got news. We've got things to react to. We got things to talk about. We had the first day complete of the DNC yesterday. It went well past midnight. And in a series of unusual and some people say not so unusual, in a series of unusual events, Joe Biden was put later into the evening, almost 11 o'clock, and went for an hour and a half. And y'all, we have so much to talk about. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his speech. We're going to talk about his daughter's speech, Ashley Biden. We're going to talk about what CNN is saying, what some of the other spaces are saying. And then we've got some breaking news around RFK potentially quitting the race and coming over onto the Trump side, bringing all of his voters and supporters, which might be an interesting curve in the story that we didn't necessarily expect. Obviously, it's something that is always a consideration. It's always something, when you run independent, you always have that constant back and forth of like, do I drop out? Do I join forces? Do I take the risks? What are the risks? What do they mean to me? All of those things. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I also have my spaces open because there's a lot of craziness going on. Honestly, a lot of what's happening right now is a lot of just like heightened name calling, heightened, like just, it almost seems to me like some of the things that are being said are just sloppy, reactional reporting. And then they get twisted into a reaction from the person that it was pushed at. So for example, there was this reporter for MSNBC, I think it's MSNBC, Andy Bashir from Kentucky. Oh, he's a governor. Governor Andy Bashir. I thought that name sounded familiar. And he's basically in a video getting interviewed by MSNBC saying that JD Vance his family should go through rape to understand that it's more than just an inconvenience. And now it's getting reposted everywhere. Y'all, now it's getting posted everywhere and everybody's reacting to it and everybody's saying awful things. So this seems to me like it's just sloppy, reactional, you punched first, I punch back sort of, but some of these comments don't even feel to me like they're genuine, like they're meant to be a genuine attack on the other person. It's literally just sloppy communication, sloppy speaking, reactional stuff where you get your feelings all up and then you say things that you wouldn't necessarily have said if you had a clear head. And because like there's absolutely things that we see in politics where people are intentionally, they know, they're conscious that they're saying what they're saying, they're intentionally saying what they're saying, they're strategically saying what they're saying, right? And then there's people who are just reacting to everything. And there's a lot of that going on during the first day of DNC, leading up to it, in the aftermath today, leading into the second day. Tonight apparently is going to start a little bit earlier because they went well into midnight. Apparently it was so long that so many of the reporters and news agencies that were there were like, are you serious? We have to go through another speech. Yeah, I did not watch the entire thing. I got I got the highlights and then went back and listened to the full speech that Biden gave. I watched the full speech that Jill gave. I watched the full speech of their daughter, Ashley. We're going to react to some of that today. But this is the way that I would describe day one of the Democratic National Convention is angry, bitter, and fake. Angry, bitter, and fake is like, those are the three words that I've got for you. Angry because there's clearly feelings between different people. Like some of these people, it's very, very clear that they do not like each other, that there's blood in the water, that there's serious, feelings and relationships and tenseness in the room. Resentful because these people are like, they're acting like Trump stole something from them, that they're acting like something was stolen from them, which is really, really interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, especially in the conversation of abortion, sanctity of life, how the Democratic Party is approaching this, how the Republican Party is approaching this. We're going to talk about a lot of that tomorrow in our stream, plus all of the other highlights from this evening. I'm sure there will be some. But yeah, bitter. It's like angry, bitter, and fake. Fake as in like all of the fake smiles, all of the fake niceties. Like it just seemed very, very artificial. So last night was a very, very long night, and Biden did not disappoint. And there's moments that I chuckle, and then I just feel sad. I just feel sad for him. I feel offended on behalf of him, I guess. I feel really frustrated that they keep putting this guy on stage and letting him just make a mockery of himself. He made a lot of mistakes. He said a lot of things that didn't make any sense last night. He stumbled over his words a ton. And so I want you to listen to these not as a place to laugh, but as a place to realize this is the guy who's running our country right now. He is the sitting acting president of the United States. This is what we're being told, that he is running the country. Everybody's backing him. Everybody's saying he's not in good health enough to continue being the next president of the United States, but he is capable of running the country, even though he looks like he is completely mentally gone every time I see him on video. So here are some of the highlights. Here are some of the moments that were just, cringe. Last night in his speech at the Democratic Convention, day one.
Or political power. No kidding.
I'm going to go back a little bit.
The decision overturning Roe v. Wade, as you heard earlier tonight, the United States Supreme Court majority wrote the following, quote, women are not without electoral or political power. No kidding.
And then he does the whole like leaning into the camera, leaning into his presence and leaning into the mic and doing this whole condescending. It's like, it's sad. It's just sad. His daughter, we have more highlights, I think.
MAGA Republicans found out the power of women in 2022.
In 2020, my dad selected Kamala Harris to beat Donald Trump.
FYI, this is Ashley Biden, Joe Biden's daughter, and she spoke in introducing him to the stage. There was this moment at the very end of her speech that was very, very interesting. Take a look.
And he knows in 2024, she will beat Donald Trump again.
So everybody's standing, and she's just sitting there. It's wild to me. Like everybody's standing around her. They're looking down at her. Everybody's standing. She's just sitting there. Like, her face is not honestly, there were photos of Harris and Waltz the entire evening, like multiple photographers getting photos of them where they just look angry, bitter, and fake. Y'all, they look like they're not having a good time. Maybe they just have really bad resting faces. But listen, y'all, then you get some coaching, right? Then you get some coaching. You bring somebody in to help them with their charisma and you work on it and you get over it because you are being filmed the entire time. If you think you're not being filmed, you're wrong. You're being filmed, right? So, like, the fact that their faces are like, some of these people do not have good Joker faces. And maybe that's a good thing for the benefit of the American people, but it's certainly not good. It's certainly not a good look. Now, while this was happening on the inside of the DNC, on the outside, there were protesters, not as many as they thought there was going to be, but they did start breaking into the fence. Oh, we must talk about the fence. We must talk about the wall that is around DNC. But take a look at this.
So tonight,
they broke through the wall, protesting. Now they're on the other side of the wall. Y'all.
100 people die in Gaza. Every day, 100 people die in Gaza.
You know, it's interesting because this is actually pretty mild compared to some of the protesting footage that I have seen. Obviously, people have the right to protest. They can protest. That's part of their right here in the country. If they're peaceably protesting, that is absolutely fine. And we're going to find out over time during this week how Chicago does. I've been to Chicago. Chicago is a beautiful city. It's got its pros and cons. But I would hate to see Chicago be vandalized, destroyed, see disadvantages of the DNC being there and all of the, I would love to be able to see genuine, peaceable protesting. And we're just going to have to find out. We're just going to have to see. It seemed to me like yesterday there was peaceable protesting leading up to the start of the DNC at around 7. There was one arrest at least, and it didn't seem like it was associated with any of the organizations that had been allowed to protest. That's at least what the security briefing had said yesterday leading up to the first evening of the DNC. I'm not sure how many arrests have been made. I'm sure there have been arrests made, but it's hard to tell if those are, based on the organization or they're people who are posing as a part of the organization. That's a huge thing, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that happens where there's an organization that's peacefully protesting, and then there's troublemakers, potential terrorists, people who are genuinely meaning to hurt, injure, cause violence that are not a part of those organizations. They're not a part of those actual protesting rallies, but they sneak into those rallies. They sneak into those protesting spaces to incite violence and to, create chaos and all of those things that they're planning on doing. So sometimes that's what happens. I'll definitely have more of an in-depth report on the security briefings tomorrow. But y'all, I just got to say, for the first evening of the DNC, the protesting was not as many as they thought it was going to be. The people who were actually at the DNC, it's hard to tell exactly how many people were there because obviously, I say obviously, but some people don't actually realize this. There are very strategic angles that are taken for for news agencies that have incentives and agendas that are to the advantage of the DNC looking like it's got it together, right? So there's absolutely particular angles that they're doing to follow their stories, to follow the agenda of their stories, to follow the angle of their stories. And so, you see very different things from different people. And because of AI, it's sort of hard to tell, okay, like how many people are actually there, because you watch the thing and you see all the people, but then you wonder, okay, well, there's a whole nother section and are there people there, etc. So it's hard to tell how many people were there. There were there were people there that were saying that this DNC felt bigger, more enthusiastic, more joyful than even the Obama run for president, which I think is very interesting. A lot of people are throwing around comparisons to the Obamas, even the RNC, you know, they were saying that this year too, like, oh my goodness, this is bigger than it's ever been. And it's like, okay, people have the memory capacity of something very short-term memory. I was going to say canary, and then I realized I don't really know how long of a memory that canaries have. I think they probably have quite a long memory. But anyway, moving on. We're going to stop with the bad similes and bad examples. Y'all, where are we going? Oh, let's go here. So CNN, this is something that's really interesting. By the way, all of the things that I'm showing you are linked in the description below. Sorry, I'm just telling you this now. They're linked in the description down below. You can see everything. The only one that I wasn't actually able to get an original source from was the CNN clip that someone else shared. I think it was Charlie Kirk shared it on his feed on X. So I shared his account because I don't get forever all the time CNN coverage, and CNN of course only puts particular kinds of clips on their YouTube channel or on their articles or different spaces because y'all, they say things that we don't hear and then we find out later and we're like, oh, that was actual genuine reporting and genuine thought that happened over there. So listen to this over at CNN. This was coverage of kind of a recap of yesterday. And they're sharing some very, very interesting things that I thought were honest perspectives.
There you go. You wouldn't know that if you read the Democratic platform because it repeatedly refers to President Biden's second term. There are roughly 19 or 20 mentions of President Biden's second term. They've had a month and a day to update it. Why haven't they?
Yeah, there won't be one of those, Biden's second term. We know that. And, listen, the platform was largely the draft of it, put in place and voted on earlier this summer. And I think in talking to some folks, the idea of reopening the platform to try to fit in not yet fully developed Kamala Harris policies while they were quickly changing, they thought they would be opening a can of worms, right? And that there would be all of a sudden some fights about what goes in the platform, and they wanted to avoid that at all costs. So they're willing to take the hit on the fact that the platform is sort of a relic of the Biden era because it's a non-binding thing. They'll vote officially today as part of the party business to put it into effect. But as you know, it has no binding capacity to it.
Right. And we should note that this also allows Vice President Harris to stay vague, stay, unspecific. That's from the Biden platform. That's not ours.
Oh, y'all, I actually thought that there were some genuine thoughts here and genuine perspectives like, oh yeah, most of the stuff that's written in their DNC articles and business papers and all of the things are stuff that's from Biden's administration, assuming that he was going to have a second run at this. And somehow the interns, the people running the show couldn't get somebody in there to fix those. Oh well. And then on top of that, this also, just like the one guy was saying, it's like this also is a great example of how we continue to keep things vague on the Harris policy side. It's like, well, this is of the past. We can excuse it. We can make an excuse for it because that was Biden's administration. Biden was going to run for the second term. That was what was in the DNC articles in business. What's interesting that they mention is, we know that there was a remote meeting of the DNC of the delegates to vote on nominating Kamala Harris as their 2024 Democratic nominee for president. So we know that that's happened. That happened, I believe, at the beginning of August, maybe at the end of July, but somewhere around there. So we know that happened, but there will be a formal vote today by the delegates. And what I'm unclear about is this a vote? I've been researching to try to find this answer and I cannot find this answer. So I guess we're all going to find out together. Is this vote for the VP? Is this a vote for the nomination of the agenda, of the policies, or is this genuinely a confirmed vote for Harris? And if that's the case, well, we're going to find out. There's been a lot of people who've speculated that, oh, well, there's going to be another flip and Michelle Obama is going to come in and, Harris won't be running and then Trump will be running against somebody else. And I seriously doubt that. I think this audience has made it very clear. This administration, the whole Democratic administration, the whole Democratic Party has made it pretty clear that they're backing Harris. And, y'all, if they really wanted to flip again, then they would have plenty of material to even more effectively take her out than they even did with Biden, which is they have so much material on her verbiage, on her opinions, on her stances, on her very, very, very far left liberal agenda that is so public and so obvious. Anybody who doesn't see that is not actually looking at her past record, is not looking at what she stood for and where she's positioned herself in all of the different positions that she has held, including being a senator on behalf of California for the U.S. Senate, but not exclusive to that. They have plenty of material if they want to take her out. I seriously doubt they will. I imagine that she will move through officially. She will become formally at the DNC, the nominee, that she'll accept it, all of that. Very, very likely that that's what's going to happen. But to be honest, the news has been, news has been wild. News has been up and down, back and forth all over the place. And it's hard to tell. In the last couple of days, I've seen more, I'll say honest. I've seen more well-rounded articles from the New York Post, from the Washington Post, even some commentary like this at the CNN world. This is definitely, by the way, this kind of content is definitely not what's surfacing. These videos, these comments that are happening, you can't find them when you go look on YouTube or you go look at, past clips of CNN shows. You find them because people who are watching CNN constantly are recording and sending it to social media. How sad that that's like the full reaction, that like, oh, there's actually genuinely people at CNN that are having legitimate conversations and talking through this stuff. And it's not just all praises and all passes. But yeah, it's hard to find this stuff because unless you're watching CNN all the time and recording and sending it out, CNN is definitely not promoting this clip of this conversation at the DNC on their YouTube channels, on their articles, on their newsletters. They're definitely not promoting it. So you always got to keep an eye out. I always try, whenever I find something that I'm like, oh snap, like I want to keep this, I will do two things. One is if I know that I'm going to get right back to it, like within 12 hours, I bookmark it wherever it is. Maybe it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, X, it's on Instagram, whatever it is. I bookmark it, I save it in some way, but then I go and download it. I go and do one of those online downloader, YouTuber, Twitter, X downloaders, and I just download them so that I have them because y'all, there's so much stuff that's getting changed, that's getting deleted, that's just getting eliminated. And unless you're keeping it, it's not yours. That my dad and I talk about this often because we're really moving away from physical copies of things, right? I still take notes. I still journal. I use a pen and paper. I've got a notebook here. I got a notebook here. Like I keep notes. I got a whiteboard. Like I keep notes because I want to make sure that I'm actually documenting and saving and can come back and reference what it was that I was thinking, found, etc. And the problem is in the online digital world, it's very easy for things to get changed. A great example is when the Trump assassination first happened, CNN came out with an article that said something along the lines of the Secret Service rushes Trump as he falls on stage. A lot of people remember this because a lot of people reacted to it, but you can't go back and find that article. They've removed it. They've changed the title. I think they've actually totally removed the article. It's not there anymore. They removed it within like 24, 48 hours of putting it out. That was a very informative piece of information on the very clear bias and the dig that they were directing towards Trump at a time that they should have been respectful and actually been tracking real news and telling the American people what was happening. But instead, they used that opportunity to put out a headline that was at the very minimum disrespectful and at the maximum like horrid, evil, awful, right? And when you actually read the article, there wasn't really much in it. Clearly, they didn't know a lot of what was going on. But hey, there were other articles out there. There were other news agencies out there that were saying, shots were fired. We haven't confirmed yet. We're continuing to keep track of it. You could say something like that. You don't have to say, he fell on stage. And they looked pretty dumb afterward, which is probably why they eliminated that article. That being said, my point is, when you find something that you're like, oh, shoot, go copy it, right? If you're taking an article, a lot of times what I'll do with an article, if it's not a video or an audio or something like that, is I'll screenshot it so that I have the dates, I have the title, I have the text. So I have the screenshot of it. I'll just do a full screenshot so that I can, like if, for example, if anybody ever, required me to like share when I screenshotted it, or they want a time code, they want a time on my computer, whatever, I just like full on screenshot it so that I have all the information that was on the screen when I saw it. And then I'll generally just copy and paste into a document the actual text itself and keep it on my desktop. So I do a lot of different things, but you got to keep track of stuff, because if you're tracking information, if you're doing any kind of research, you're doing any kind of investigation of what's going on in the news, you got to keep track of it, because people can go and change those headlines so fast and so easy, remove articles, replace articles, change the names, change the text, all the things, even though what people mostly saw was the original version, just like, Trump falls on stage and the Secret Service rushes him, right? Ugh. Okay, so let's get to a really, really interesting development that has happened over on the RFK side. I had an article that I wanted to show you, but, I lost it. So let me go really quick and find it. Basically, RFK, there's been some rumblings from his running mate, his VP, and her name is Nicole Shanahan. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. If I am, it is so not intentional. It's because I don't know how to pronounce your name. What's interesting and surprising and totally on me is that I had never seen her before, didn't know who she was, but she actually has some really good, solid thoughts, and really love her interview. I have not listened to the full. I'm like almost halfway, so definitely go check it out. I put the full interview with Tom Bellew. Y'all know who he is. He's this nerdy guy with the glasses. He's so great. He brings in a lot of really great people, but you can go take a look at his interview with Nicole. It was a really, really great interview. Very like peaceful. Do you know what I mean? Like, Tom's great. How Tom interviews is fantastic, because he asks a question and then he just lets them riff. He lets them talk about it, talk through it. He asks a good amount of personal and also positioning questions that help them to share their position or their perspective or what they're doing in the world, but also giving them the opportunity to share personally about themselves. And so I really am enjoying watching this interview. You can go check it out in the description down below. We're going to watch a little version of this, but before we do that, I just want to, this is such, I paused on the Charlie Kirk video over here in such a bad way. Let me show you this. So Charlie posted this 3 hours ago. I also saw several other people post as well. This is an actual video, and the video came out 7 hours ago. So this is truly breaking news. RFK Jr.'s VP Nicole Shanahan says their campaign is considering joining forces with Trump to prevent a Harris-Walz administration. Yeah. I have feelings about this, y'all. I definitely have feelings about this because I actually love the idea of a strong independent. Like, I think it would be refreshing to have an independent get in and get in a way that was fair, right? There's been a lot of mudslinging, there's been a lot of horrid things that generally happen in politics for everybody involved. Um, but it sounds, if you actually go and listen to this interview with Nicole and Tom, you're going to hear some things about what the Democrats have been doing against the independents. And it's been really, really interesting. So go check that out. It's definitely something to watch. We're going to watch a little segment of it here on the stream. Playing. Oh, it's not playing. Hang on one second. Let me make it play.
You know, there's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
There is a lot more in that interview. This is just a small clip, but that's very interesting. You know, a lot of people are speculating, oh, well, if the independents move over to promote Trump, if RFK moves over and his party and his voters move over to Trump, then Trump is guaranteed to win. And to be honest, what I'll say is nobody is guaranteed to win in this game at all. Like, don't get comfortable. Don't get comfy on your couch during this election year, because this is definitely not going to be a close race. And what's so fascinating is there's so much more involved than just the voters who are voting. Absolutely, our vote counts. Absolutely, it matters for us to vote. It matters for us to do our response, to be responsible in our duties in the United States. Part of that is having the opportunity to speak, having the opportunity to speak through our vote, having the opportunity to speak through the ability that we still have to conduct free speech, right? We're doing it right now. So absolutely all of those things are influenced. And there is a lot of money in this game. There is a lot of mudslinging in this game. There's a lot of bureaucracy in this game. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of diversion. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of things going on in this game that are absolutely going to influence the voters and are going to influence the emotions and perspective that the voters have on what is actually happening leading up. So a lot of this that we've seen is AI is having a massive influence in this race. It's really interesting to see how it is, because for me, as someone who has had a lot of experience in graphic design, has had a lot of experience in digital art, manipulation, web design, graphic design, video production. I know a fake almost always. Sometimes I miss them. Everybody sometimes misses them. But some of these AI things that have been coming out that are showing massive crowds for Harris or massive crowds for Trump, or the opposite, you know, people removed or smaller amounts of people, or even just like people taking pictures before the thing even started and saying, see, there's nobody here. All of this is just manipulation, right? It's not actual fact. And the people who are posting it know that. You know, the people who are sharing it may have no idea. But once someone posts something out of a willful desire and a willful intent to mislead at the very minimum, and on the maximum, lie, deceive, you know, cheat people, essentially, right? The people who are doing that are then basically taking advantage of those who are just reacting to it and then they're sharing it, and then other people are sharing it, and then eventually you get this momentum. So one of the things that I've been seeing is obviously the rally sizes and amounts of people. Some of these pictures are ridiculous. I'm so bummed I don't have pictures for you today. Well, I'll definitely collect some for tomorrow's stream. But there's honestly some ridiculous pictures that look so fake, y'all. But then the other thing that has been popping up on my feed quite a bit is Swifties for Trump. Y'all have you guys been hearing about this? It's ridiculous. Swifties for Trump. So many of these images are fake. I think I've only seen one, maybe two pictures out there of real people. The rest of them are AI generated. They look way too perfect, way too filtered. Y'all, they're fake. The surroundings around them are fake. Their clothes are fake. Their faces are fake. They're fake. And people that I know and respect have been sharing them too. And they're like, look, see, this is happening. And I'm like, guys, it's fake. We look really immature by playing their own game. And here's the thing, like, some people are sharing them because they're saying, well, the other team is playing unfairly, so we might as well play to win. And something that a friend of mine who was in politics is still very much involved in the state and in the government. She said to me, it depends, like, your objective is huge, because if your objective is to win, then you're going to have to do a lot of awful things to win. And a lot of people sell their souls. But at the end of the day, if you're in a position and you're saying, God, use me however you want to use me, right? That his will may be it may actually be that his will is not attached to you winning, that his will may be intently that you lose, but that you run, right? But that you run. And sometimes we're so focused on the winning part that we do a lot of things. We compromise our values. We compromise our morals. We, cut here, sneak in here, play the same game over here. We manipulate images and say, look, this is happening. And then we turn around and we look in the mirror and we say, who am I? Like, we lose ourselves because we cared so much about that objective that we thought was so important that we actually end up missing out on the privilege of responding in a way that is in integrity, responding in a way that actually glorifies God, responding in a way that is actually showing long-term an element of character that far outweighs any winning streak that anyone could ever have. Truly, I want you to think about the past presidents that have impacted or influenced you the most. A lot of them are people that have influenced me that were dead before I was even alive. They influenced me by their stories. They influenced me by the stories of other people who told their stories, who told the character and the integrity of their life, who told about the valuable things that they did that may not have seemed that significant at the time, but later on, it was clear that they were playing a long game. They were playing a game that was integrity, that was sustainability, that was actually serving and supporting the people that they had been elected by. And we can't say that often about elected officials, but when we do meet elected officials that are genuinely operating from a place of integrity, operating from a place of, I would rather lose and keep my soul and keep my character intact than win and be looking in the mirror and saying, I don't know who that person is. They're a liar, a thief, a cheater, a manipulator. In other words, what is most important to you? Is the objective to win? Well, then you're going to look like Donald Trump. You're going to look like Kamala Harris. You're going to look like these people who are just out there to win. And, honestly, Harris is horrible. I am not a Trump fan by any means. I will likely vote for Trump just because Harris is way more of a problem than her morals, her ethics, her policies. And by the way, y'all, if you want to know about her policies, go look at her past work. Go look at her past. Go look at her record. And for anybody out there that is saying, well, you shouldn't judge them by their record in the past. She's a different person. She can take a different position. No. Follow the themes of what she believes. Follow the themes of what matters most to her. How does she respond when she doesn't get what she wants? There was this video that I saw earlier today of her in the Senate. She was asking a question of somebody. It was clear that she was just hyping it up and she kept interrupting him. He was answering the question. He was answering a yes or no question. He was giving the answer and she kept interrupting him. And finally, the chair of the Senate in that particular hearing said, listen, like, we're supposed to give them the ability to actually answer the question. And she got all upset at him and she was like, this is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, got it. In other words, this is how she responds. This is one of many examples of how she responds when she doesn't get what she wants. So watch the behavior in particular of elected officials who are not getting what they want. How do they respond? Do they respond in, Harris, a great example, is like she just throws a hissy fit. Y'all, just throws a loud hissy fit and then works her inner workings. On the Trump side, he just denies reality and denies things that happen, or at the very minimum, doesn't move on. Like, when do you move on? When do you just acknowledge that you weren't the president for the last 4 years and the past is the past and we're going to learn from it and we're going to move on? And this is a huge, huge thing when it comes to even the verbiage of these two parties, which is something that's so important for us to, I'm just going to keep driving it home, which is Harris's campaign is really pushing joy and hope. They're pushing these very subjective words nowadays. They used to mean something very tangible. Now they're very subjective. Freedom, this is her theme songs, y'all. Freedom, freedom, where are you? If I hear that one more time, I'm gonna scream. She's pushing these ambiguous words and saying, we're the party of joy, we're the party of hope, we're the party of freedom. But then what does these actually mean, right? What does Kamala's freedom look like? What does Kamala's joy look like? Well, it looks really fake. What does Kamala's hope look like, right? She's so forward focused, but she's not actually being diligent about learning from the past, gaining wisdom from the past, and bringing that information, that understanding, that wisdom, that knowledge, that experience forward into the future. She keeps throwing out these numbers, throwing out these promises without actually giving tangible answers about how she's going to do it. And by the way, how you actually follow through on enacting a policy, on actually making it happen so the American people actually benefit from it, that cannot be unattached to the past and the present. If you're actually putting policy into place and then having it happen, doing the things that you need to do to, give these vouchers for parents to have kids, or, lower inflation, or, eliminate price gouging, or, all of these things that she's talking about, giving vouchers for, helping out with people who are first-time house owners. Okay, but how are you going to do that? And how you do that needs to be grounded in understanding where we've come from, what worked, what didn't work, and where are we right now? Where are we in reality right now? And this is something that I am insanely on a bandwagon about, beyond politics, into the very heart of our country, into the very heart of each soul, which is the importance, it is so important that we understand morals are objective. Lots of people have different morals, but morals are objective. Morals are what laws are based on. Laws are how we actually decide what is true, what is false, what is right, what is wrong. And in the world that we live in right now, there is a war, I'm now doing the Biden thing, y'all. An ideological war on truth and on morals. Everything has become subjective. My truth is my truth over here, and it works for me. And also, I can enforce my opinions and thoughts on you, but you can't on me. It's like, it's all just whatever I want to do is what I want to do. And I totally accept what you want to do unless you're objecting to what I want, which means then you're not cool and you're not living within the bounds. And now you're the one that's getting deported. Do you know what I mean? Like when we say something that's against the grain, when we say something that is in disagreement or rejection of what someone else thinks, then suddenly that's when everybody gets up in a roar. People just are like, we want to live in unity. But what does unity actually end up? What does unity actually manifest itself into? Chaos. We're seeing chaos everywhere. Everybody's walking in their own direction. Everybody's making up their own rules. Everybody's making up their own laws. Everybody's living their own lives without any acknowledgement of the consequences of their actions and their choices. We see this in the abortion issue. We see this in the economic issue. We see this in how policies are being handled. We see this in the entertainment world, in the music world. We see this in social media. We see this all over the place in the lies, the manipulations that are being told. But then also everything's just subjective. It's just fine. It's just okay, right? No, there's no problems. You can't run a country off of everybody doing their own thing and no one actually acknowledging that there is a moral code, that there is a moral law, that there is a ethic that everyone is to follow. Whether you're following it because you live in this country and it's not a religious come from, that's fine. Ultimately, you can live in this country. You don't have to be Christian to live in this country, but we get to respect the laws that are in place. We get to respect the ethics that this country was born on. And I think that's the huge issue here is like people think that, oh, well, I can just do whatever I want and I can design a country because I live in the country. So what I say has to be reflected in what the country does. And it ends up just being complete chaos because there is no respect. I can't tell you how many peers I've talked to, how many people who are 10, 15 years older than me who have zero respect and like total acidic hate for our founding fathers. They don't respect them. They're like out to destroy them. They're out to actively mar their reputation, mar who they were, mar what they did. By the way, these people were not perfect people. You're not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect person. They weren't a perfect person. And yet the intention, the objective here is to completely change the laws, completely change what's actually happening, what's objectively true, what's objectively acknowledged, and just make everything completely subjective. And we're seeing that in politics. We're definitely absolutely seeing that in a very poignant way on the Harris side with her, the people that are representing her, the people who are working for her past records, the people who are working for her and their past records. You look at Waltz, he's very, very leftist. He is not your run-of-the-mill dad from the Midwest. He is very, very left. It's funny, he was making fun of J.D. Vance's education, and yet he also is a bigwig when it comes to education. It kind of just makes me chuckle when things like that happen because it's like, did you not think that we would go check this out? Did you not think that we would go investigate where you went to college when you're throwing and bashing someone else for going to an Ivy League college? Hello. And also good for him. Good for J.D. Vance. He didn't show up with money in his pockets. He showed up from nothing. He went from nothing to being able to go to an Ivy League college. Good for you. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody sees that as an objective. I don't. But he did. And someone, I don't remember who it was, there's been a couple people that have been sharing thoughts on how in our modern culture, there's a lot of pushback and a lot of anger against the people who get ahead, who work their butt off to make it where they are, to be an overachiever, to hustle it out, to actually make changes, to move up the pipeline, to move up to a position of authority. And there's a lot of pushback and making fun of those people when at a different time in our history books, we would be celebrating those people. We would be like, this is the American dream. But now the American dream, based on the far left radical Democrats, is inclusivity, acceptance, and tolerance. As long as you agree with me, and as long as everyone agrees with me, will get along. In other words, you either go along or you get along, and we really don't care which one. Just do one or the other and you'll be fine. And it's like, y'all, that is not the American dream. That's not what we were founded on. And we're seeing the level of chaos that happens when everyone is just doing what they want without any acknowledgement or responsibility or ownership of the consequences to our choices. We all have choices, we all make choices, and we all have consequences to our choices. I just recently was inducted into the board of our local Right to Life. And this is a pro-life sanctity of life organization that does a lot of really great work in our community and in our state, and by the way, around the country. And when I say yes to that, I know that that also closes the door to other opportunities. It means my evenings are a little bit less available for me to do whatever I want. It means that there's times where I get to be on the phone, or I get to take notes, or get to, do secretarial things, or get to pitch in, or get to support. And it may seem like a little thing, but every yes that you give away, you're also saying no to something else. And every door that you close, every door that you say, nope, not going to go in there, it also gives you an opportunity to say yes to something else. There are consequences to all of those choices. So to be separate, to be disconnected from the fact that there are consequences to our choices is something that actually has us miss out on the lessons that inevitably come from living and being a human being and experiencing life, right? You can go around and live life and react and say, I'm going to do what I want to do. That's fine. But there are going to be consequences to your choices. And as long as you are in ownership of those, go for it. There are lots of consequences that we're all taking every single day for the things that matter to us. But if we're making choices and not actually accepting the consequence, someone else pays the price. It's like our first episode on is college a scam, right? We were talking about that student who wasn't paying for college. He was getting a scholarship. He was getting funding from federal government funding. And, he was asked, like, who's paying for your college? And he said, well, probably the government. And it's like, someone is paying for it. And it ends up being taxpayers like us, right? Someone is paying for it. Someone is paying for it. I think about this too, as I'm, going back to college and, applying for scholarships, applying for financial aid, applying for different things. And I have to understand that that money isn't coming out of thin air. It's not just arriving in my little college bank account, right? No, this is something that someone else has actually paid, whether it's in a space that was put there ahead of time, or it's someone actually saying, hey, I want to support this person and actually going and pursuing their career and their dreams. Someone is indirectly or directly paying for your consequences if you are not actually in ownership of them. And this could be really depressing, especially to my age group. Y'all, I get it. We have a real issue with talking about heavy stuff like consequences to our actions and choices. Where are we putting our money? Where are we investing? What kind of relationships are we investing in? What kind of world do we want to live in? Are we engaging in that kind of world? Are we using our voice in a respectful, honest way? If we're not, then we're just walking around in the world going, well, I'm complaining about all of these things, but I'm not actually taking action. And the privilege and the joy that can happen when you actually jump into it, when you lean into the issues that everybody else is backing out of, when you lean into the issues and you lean into the responsibility and the potential consequences that are there if you make those choices, if you lean in, you are going to learn so much about people. You're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to learn so much about your worldview, how it may get to be challenged, how that challenge actually builds resilience and strength in who you are and your character. When you go after it and lean into those no's and lean into those people who say, I don't have time for you. Who are you? How many followers do you have? Right? When you've got those people that are saying, I'm not going to give you a job. You don't have a bachelor's degree, or I'm not going to do this because you aren't that. Lean into it. Take those risks. be willing to pay those consequences, because those doors, there will be doors that will be available to you when you're actually willing to put in the work and be okay with the consequences of nope, 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 you're not cool, you're not cool, you're not cool, whatever it is. When you're willing to pay those consequences, there are doors that are available to you that people who aren't will never actually access. And so as we look at the political landscape, as we look at the social landscape, as we look at the cultural landscape, the economic landscape, it can be really, really depressing. Mind you, like we all got to work together on not getting depressed or taking ourselves out of the game because we're discouraged or frustrated about what's happening in the world, but instead come from a perspective of, okay, I get to educate myself. I get to understand what's happening. I get to look at it realistically. And then I also get to look at it from a place of hope, trust that this is not the end of the world. Truly, this is not the end of the world. God is good. God is present. God is with me. God is giving me a purpose that he will fulfill in whatever way he chooses. It's so beautiful. I was watching a training today on being a wife. I'm not a wife. I'm not a mom yet, but it was a beautiful, beautiful training on the fact that like this is such a privilege. So many people are chasing all the other things while being a wife. Like that's just going to happen, right? I need to chase some career. And instead they were saying, listen, like being a wife is something that takes time and engagement and growth to lean into and to figure out and to figure out your spouse and all the things that go on with being a wife. Enjoy it, lean into it, have a appreciation and a privilege of getting to do life with somebody in the context of marriage. And I loved that because it just goes to show that whether it is being in politics or it's being a mother and a wife, or it's, engaging in your local economy and in running a business, going and working for somebody, going and learning some skills, being a plumber. I don't know what it is that you want to do, but whatever it is, there can be so much purpose and satisfaction because you choose it, because you lean into it, because you enjoy just the act of working at something and being excellent at something. If there's anything that I have learned about chasing lots of different careers and running a business for 4 years and having it go up and down and crash many, many times, having a business that completely died on me many, many times, or should I say more responsibly, that I killed many, many times. What I have learned time and time again is that there are lessons that I will only genuinely learn when I'm willing to actually take the risk to go after it, to lean in, to make the choices and experience the consequences and be responsible for them. But also there is a privilege to having a purpose that is deeper than my career. There's actually a deep joy and satisfaction of having a purpose to my life that is deeper than the job that I choose to go at every day, whether that's physically going somewhere or it's my own business or it's your own business, whatever it is. There is something deeper that is, for me, is my relationship with my God. And he's the one that defines and sets course my morals, sets course my ethics, sets course my right and wrong, my sense of direction, my depth of character, that he's constantly working on me. Thank the Lord. That purpose is so much deeper than my job, than my career, than the amount of money in my bank account, and the opportunities that I get, and the yeses that are in my space, and the no's that are in my space, and the people and what they think, my family, my friends. It's deeper than any of that, even though all of those things matter. And all of those things I love, all of those things will take me just so far on the satisfaction level. But the thing that is always there and always present is my relationship with my God and Savior. And so if you don't have a relationship with God, if you don't have a relationship with your Creator, I definitely encourage you to have a deeper conversation. You can have that conversation with me. You can have that conversation. Maybe you have a friend, but definitely reach out to me. You can find me anywhere. If you look up Katie Stowe, Facebook, Instagram, X, you can message me wherever you want to message me. I'd love to have a conversation with you about your faith, where you're at on your journey, where you feel stuck. And that's just an offer always. So if that's you and you're feeling hopeless and discouraged about the world of politics, you're feeling overwhelmed and discouraged about everything that's going on in the world, oftentimes that happens because we lose focus on the objective and we lose focus on where we're actually putting our trust. If I'm putting my trust in Donald Trump, I'm going to be disappointed. If I'm putting my trust in Kamala Harris, I'm going to be disappointed. If I'm putting my trust in the United States government, I'm going to be disappointed. If I'm putting my trust in my parents as the people who are going to be everything to me and be my whole life and my whole purpose and my whole satisfaction, I'm going to be disappointed. If I put trust in myself as the person that I can lean on whenever and I can count on my thoughts and my perspectives and my choices always being right and good, I'm going to be disappointed. And I've been disappointed many, many times. So this is an opportunity for us to put trust in the God and Creator who truly deserves and can hold and take care of our trust. And to come from the perspective of hope and confidence when we are engaging in politics, when we're engaging in the economy, when we're engaging in conversations, being respectful, being educated, being willing to acknowledge when we're wrong, being willing to acknowledge when we messed up, when we said something incorrect, when we said something that wasn't loving or honest or true, and learning from it and being wiser and more discerning the next time. So that's what we got today. I hope you have an amazing, amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow. We got lots of fun stuff that we're going to dive into tomorrow, including all of the things, all the goodies that I promised you from this stream today, as well as doing a fun little debrief of tonight's day 2 of the DNC, as well as anything else that happens, anything else that happens in the next few hours before we meet again. All right, y'all, have an amazing, amazing day. Remember that all of the things that I've referenced, all the things that we've reacted to, the videos, articles, things, all of that is always in the description down below. So you can go check out, research, do your due diligence on your own investigation skills. Learn how to be a critical thinker, learn how to have some discernment and understanding about what is right, what's wrong, what are the lies, what are the in-betweens, what's actually fact, what's actually true, and then making your own decisions from there. I'll see you on the next stream.